Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen and enjoy my stories every day. The morning air was crisp, tinged with the promise of an early fall. I zipped up my jacket as I headed towards my studio, the one place where I had always found solace and creativity. As a writer, this small, secluded room on the outskirts of the city was my refuge, a sanctuary lined with bookshelves and scattered papers that bore witness to late nights and relentless pursuit of the perfect storyline. Today, though, I was not here to write but to retrieve. I glanced at my watch, the minutes ticking away faster than my pace. My flight was in less than 3 hours, and I was cutting it dangerously close. The studio loomed ahead, its rustic door usually a welcome sight, but today it was the hurdle between me and my crucial notes forgotten in yesterday's haste. As I approached, I noticed something odd, a figure hunched over the lock, fumbling awkwardly with the key. As I got closer, the figure straightened, turning slightly. It wasn't just anyone, it was a man I had never seen before. Confusion gave way to a flash of irritation. "Can I help you?" I called out, my tone sharper than intended. The man jumped, dropping the key, and turned to face me fully. His expression shifted from surprise to embarrassment. "Oh, I must have the wrong place," he stammered, bending to pick up the key. "That's an old key," I said, stepping closer. My eyes narrowed as I took in his disheveled appearance. This was no random mistake. "What are you doing here?" He hesitated, his eyes flickering with a hint of fear. "I used to come here," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know it had changed hands. The realization hit me like a cold wave. My studio, my sanctuary, had been violated, not by a stranger but by someone who knew it intimately through illicit means. "Who gave you that key?" I demanded, my voice cold, the pieces falling into place with a sickening clarity. It was Emily," he confessed, and my world tilted on its axis. Emily, my wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone. My heart pounded in my chest as betrayal snaked through my veins. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the swirling chaos of my thoughts. "Leave. Now," I said, my voice low but firm. He didn't need telling twice. As soon as he scampered off, my mind raced with the implications of his words. Emily, my love, my partner, had given him the key. The images and thoughts I had brushed aside as mere insecurities now painted a vivid picture of deceit. I stood before the studio door, the broken lock a metaphor for the shattered trust between us. But it was not just about betrayal, it was about reclaiming what was mine. I would start with the studio, changing the locks, cleansing it of their memories. Then, I would confront Emily. But it wouldn't just be a confrontation, it would be the end. I would ensure she knew the depth of her betrayal had consequences. My revenge would be swift, a divorce that would cut as cleanly and deeply as her deception had. She would leave, and this chapter of my life would close. As I finally unlocked the door and stepped into the dimly lit room, the familiar smell of books and paper greeted me like the embrace of an old friend. I was home, and it was time to start anew. The story of betrayal was just beginning, and I was the author of its conclusion. The drive back from the studio was a blur, my mind a tumultuous storm of betrayal and fury. Each red light was a moment too long, every slow driver an obstacle in my path to confrontation. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the simmering anger had reached a boil. Emily's car was there, innocently parked as if it were just another day. I stormed into the house, the slam of the door echoing through the silent halls. "Emily!" I called out, my voice a mix of rage and disbelief. There was no answer, only the distant sound of a shower running upstairs. Fury lent speed to my steps as I ascended the staircase 2 at a time. Reaching the bathroom, I threw open the door. Steam and the scent of her lavender shampoo met me as I faced the frosted glass of the shower. "Emily!" I shouted again, louder this time. The water shut off abruptly, and moments later, Emily emerged, wrapped in a towel, her expression one of shock and confusion. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Don't act innocent with me," I snapped, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. "I know about him, Emily. The studio, the old key, how could you?" Her face paled, guilt washing over her features. I can explain," she stammered, reaching out a hand to me. I stepped back, recoiling from her touch as if burned. "Explain? How do you explain betrayal? How do you explain lying to my face?" My voice rose with each word, my anger peaking. "I was going to tell you," she pleaded, tears starting to form in her eyes. "It was a mistake, a horrible mistake. It meant nothing." "A mistake?" I echoed, incredulous. "You think this can be brushed off as a mistake? You've been lying to me, using my studio for your affairs." She sobbed, her whole body shaking. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean for it to go this far. It started out so innocently." "Innocently?" I scoffed, the word bitter in my mouth. "There's nothing innocent about deception. You've made your choice, Emily, and now I'm making mine." Her eyes widened as she realized the gravity of the situation. "What are you saying?" "I want a divorce," I declared, the words cold and final. "I can't trust you, Emily. I can't be with someone who destroys everything we've built together." She reached for me again, desperation in her eyes. "Please, don't do this. We can go to counseling, we can work through this. I love you." But it was too late. The love I had once felt was smothered by betrayal. "Pack your things," I said, turning away to hide the pain her words had reopened. "I'll be staying at a hotel tonight. When I come back, I expect you to be gone." Leaving her there, sobbing amidst the steam, I felt a hollow victory. The first step of my revenge was complete, but it brought no satisfaction, only the heavy weight of a love lost. As I drove away from what was once our home, the dusk seemed to mirror the dusk of my own heart, dark and empty. The night air was sharp as I stepped out of the taxi in front of the hotel, the lights of the city casting long shadows on the pavement. My mind was a chaotic symphony of hurt and plans for the next steps in my calculated revenge. First, secure my personal and professional life, then dismantle the lies piece by piece. I checked in with a numbness that permeated my actions, mechanically accepting the key card and making my way to the room. The neutral smell of the hotel corridor seemed to strip away the last vestiges of the home I had shared with Emily. Once inside the room, I threw my bag down and pulled out my laptop. It was time to make everything official. I drafted an email to my lawyer detailing my intentions for the divorce and outlining the evidence of Emily's infidelity. Before I could second-guess myself, I hit send. The digital confirmation of my decision seemed to echo in the suddenly too quiet room. I then opened a new document to draft a public statement. As a writer, my reputation hinged not just on my work, but on the perception of my character. I had to control the narrative before rumors began to swirl. Just as I finished drafting, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Emily, her words a desperate plea, "Please, we need to talk. I'm so sorry. Can we meet tomorrow?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to hurl the phone against the wall, to shut her out completely, but another part, a strategic part, knew that facing her could provide closure, and more control over the impending fallout. Tomorrow. Public place. 10 a.m., I typed back, setting the terms on my own grounds. The next morning, I arrived early at the cafe, a bustling spot downtown where privacy was ensured by the sheer volume of people. Emily walked in right on time, her eyes red-rimmed, her posture defeated. She spotted me and made her way over, her glance furtive, worried about who might see us together in this state. As she sat down, I didn't miss the curious glances thrown our way. "You wanted to talk, so talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Emily took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. I know I've ruined everything. But I want you to understand, it wasn't all lies. I do love you, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. Please. Her words hung between us, but the betrayal had built a wall too high to scale. You destroyed our trust, Emily. There's no fixing that. You need to accept the consequences of your actions. The divorce is happening. Our relationship is over. Her face crumpled, and she nodded slowly, finally accepting the inevitable. What about us, publicly? What will you say? I'll protect my own reputation, I replied, my decision clear. I suggest you prepare yourself for the outcomes as well. It's best if you start fresh somewhere else. We parted with nothing more to say, the finality of the conversation marking the end of our shared journey. As I walked back through the city streets, the weight of the broken marriage was counterbalanced by a newfound determination to rebuild and redefine my life on my own terms. The fallout was just beginning, and while the path of retribution was less about revenge now, it was wholly about reclaiming my life and narrative. The weeks that followed were a slow-motion replay of devastation, each day peeling back another layer of the life I had thought secure. With the divorce proceedings in full swing and my focus fixed on stripping the falsehoods from my life, I discovered more than just infidelity. I uncovered a series of betrayals that reached into my professional world as well. It turned out Emily's lover, Mark, was not just a casual fling. He was a literary critic, influential in circles where my own works often circulated. The more I dug, the more I realized the depth of their deception. Mark had been manipulating his reviews of my work, subtly undermining my reputation, guided by insider knowledge Emily had fed him. Fueled by this revelation, I plotted my revenge, not just to reclaim my life but to expose them for the frauds they were. My plan was meticulous and leveraged my skills as a writer to craft the perfect trap. I invited Mark to a literary debate, publicly challenging him on inconsistencies in his reviews, under the guise of discussing the subjectivity of literary criticism. The event was well publicized, drawing a crowd eager for intellectual discourse but unwittingly about to witness a takedown. As the debate progressed, I steered the conversation towards the ethics of criticism, slowly building my case in front of the audience. Let's discuss the ethical implications of critics using their platforms for personal vendettas, I began, my eyes locking onto Mark's, who swallowed uncomfortably. I'm not sure what you're implying, Mark responded, his voice steady but his eyes betraying a flicker of panic. Oh, but I think you do, I countered, pulling out a series of documents and emails, proof of his biased reviews and his relationship with Emily. The crowd gasped as I laid out the evidence, each piece a nail in the coffin of his career. Emily, who had been sitting in the back, stood abruptly, her face a mask of horror. This is a misunderstanding, she called out, her voice shaky. A misunderstanding? I echoed, my tone icy. Is it a misunderstanding that you shared my manuscripts with him? Or that you too used your affair to sabotage my career? The silence that followed was palpable. Mark stood, defeated, his career over as his credibility evaporated before an audience of his peers. Emily tried to approach me afterward, tears in her eyes, but I turned away, unwilling to afford her any more of my attention. The fallout was immediate and devastating for them both. Mark was ostracized from the literary community, his reviews scrutinized and his career in shambles. Emily left town, the shame of her actions and their public unveiling too much to bear. As for me, I watched the ruins of their lives from a distance, a Pyrrhic victory that afforded little satisfaction. The betrayal had cost me dearly, but in its wake, I found a renewed focus on my writing, my narratives tinged with the darker truths of human nature. I had sought revenge and achieved it, but the taste was as bitter as the betrayal that had seeded it. In the end, they were gone from my life forever, and I was left with a clearer view of who I was and what I valued. The lesson was harsh, but necessary, and as I penned the first words of my next novel, I knew it would be my most authentic work yet.